return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
The Canadian Parliament essentially having a standing ovation for this Ukrainian veteran who actually fought in World War II with the Nazis.
He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him for all his service. Thank you.
Trudeau comes out and says that this is very embarrassing for Canada and for all Canadians.
Goes without saying that it is profoundly embarrassing for Canada's Parliament and by extension for all Canadians.
That's an interesting way of going about it, as opposed to saying, well, you know, this is our doing and our mistake. He's like, he puts all Canadians, he implicates all Canadians. Like, I'm not embarrassed by this.
So wait, hold on. Well, give me some context. So the Parliament.
Okay, so hold on. So they had Zelensky come to the Canadian Parliament after he went to the US to ask for more money, to ask for whatever the heck he needs, right?
Okay.
More siphoning off of Canadian and US tax dollars. So Zelensky comes, and then the Speaker of the House recognizes a Canadian Ukrainian who unwittingly, they didn't realize, I guess, that he was a Nazi collaborator in World War II. He's 93, 97 years old. But so it's just, the irony comes full circle here, because one of the main criticisms that Putin has, and they criticize Putin for having this criticism of Ukraine, is that there's a ton of neo-Nazis in the west of Ukraine. So if people are familiar with the Ukrainian geography and demography, the west of Ukraine, Kiev, which is centered around Kiev. So you have the west of Ukraine, then you have the east of Ukraine, which is the Donbass region, where you have Luhansk and Donetsk, and the east of Ukraine is, you know, they're bordering Russia, and they're majority Russian speaking. So you have this since 2014, since this coup in 2014, you've had an ongoing kind of civil war between the east and the west. And the east, this Donetsk region, the Donbass region, sorry, they voted to become independent of Ukraine, to be an independent state. There was a US-backed coup. This is not conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy that.
Yeah, there's actually documentary videos of them talking about the people in power at the moment, saying that this has to happen. So
yeah, Oliver Stone made a great documentary. I've posted before, and it's gotten censored, of course. But Victoria Nuland and Gregory something or other, the ambassador to Ukraine, they essentially used the USAID and planned a coup with a couple key players there. One of them being Klitschko, the boxer, and then there was Ole Tokhnibuk and this guy Yatsenyuk, and they essentially took over the government after this coup.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, you know, what he needs is Klitsch and Tokhnibuk on the outside. I just think Klitsch going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
The USAID and George Soros's Open Society Foundation, through their foundation, the International Renaissance Foundation in Ukraine, were behind this violent uprising and overthrow of a government.
I set up a foundation in Ukraine before Ukraine became independent of Russia. And the foundation has been functioning ever since. And it played an important part in events now.
But so essentially there's been this war between the East and the West, and the West of Ukraine has a long history of being Nazi sympathizers with this guy, Stepan Bandera, who started the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists.
And the thing is that people have to make sure that they're not surprised that when we say, oh, the U.S. was involved in this coup. Like, there isn't really one coup anywhere in the world that the U.S. isn't a part of, or that the U.S. orchestrated. I mean, the CIA is something else. So, yeah, it's not like this is a one-off situation. Like, oh, it's so random.
But people that would be listening to us, I believe they are very familiar with this Ukrainian narrative, this fake Ukrainian narrative in the mainstream, and what's really happened. So just to top this off, so they invited Zelensky to Parliament to ask for more money and whatnot, but they honored this guy. They had a standing ovation. The Speaker of the House then resigned the next day because he was embarrassed by this, which is what politicians should do. If Trudeau had any dignity, he would have resigned a long time ago with all of his corruption allegations.
Do you think it was a vetting mistake? Because that's happened even here in the State of the Union.
It was.
With the police officer, I believe that
But the irony is that this is not a one-off thing. Like, the majority of Western Ukraine, the people that we're funding, are neo-Nazis. This is not like this is well documented. So that's the point of it. That's, for me, that is like, it's just so telling of what's actually happening, how fake the narrative is in the mainstream media.
From this point, I do try to think down the middle. So yes, I mean, Azov, especially the Azov regiment, was infiltrated by neo-Nazis. They have flags, and there's tons of pictures of them doing the Nazi signal, symbolism, all that. But then I've read that they've cleaned it up, that they've gotten rid of the people at the top. Now, whether that's true, who knows, right? There's no way really to tell. But I want to believe that they're inherently good. So if let's say it was in the 1900s,
we have a long discussion to have about
because the people of the country are fundamentally good people, right? I mean, just like we were saying, people at the top, the elites that want to control everything, but the people are, for the most part, good. Yeah, of course, you're always going to have the fringe, right and left that are going to be kind of the outliers, but it's an interesting story. There's a lot to it, and I don't know if rather who's right, who's wrong, who's lying, and I mean, obviously both sides are lying, but I want to believe, from knowing so many Ukrainian people that I've come across here in Hollywood and friends that I have, that some of them are like, yeah, I just don't care, man. I just don't want war. Like,
exactly.
I just want it to stop. But it doesn't behoove both sides to have it stop. That's sad.
So going back to the Nazi being honored at this Canadian event in Parliament, it could have been a vetting issue, to be honest. They wouldn't have done anything unless people on Twitter, on X, push back, right? There was a whole huge movement where they were like, people heard about it and they're like, well, wait, I know a little bit about war history. Like, people in Ukraine, especially where this guy was from, they were Nazis. And then it turns out that this guy was actually in the SS. To be honest, I mean, Trudeau's track record isn't that great, and the Canadian government's track record isn't that great. So, like, my thought process is, okay. My take is that the Liberal Party in Canada doesn't have a great track record. I think they were trying to pull a fast one on us and just honor this SS Nazi and just try to almost appropriate that movement and try to make it look good. And then obviously X and Twitter push back, and I mean, people on X made the speaker step down, right? I mean, that's essentially what happened. So I mean, that's my take, though.
The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, not be televised.